Ray, if you spent like $30,000 on a used EV, wouldn't you be a bit frustrated if it only had like, I don't know, 70% of its rated range?
Well, yeah, of course I would be. Um, but that depends. It was the $30,000 70% of what its original value was.
Oh, Ray. We love you, Ray. Yeah, good point.
Yeah,
Good point.
yeah.
Well, think of it like this. 30% range loss. It depends on like what was your original range. Was it 81 miles like the 2013 Nissan Leaf? If you lose 30% of that, you're kind of screwed on your way to work. Or is it losing 30% from a Tesla Model 3 with 350 miles of range? What I'm getting at, Ray, is we need to talk about 3 warning signs or
Yes.
3 reasons
Yes.
to stay very far away from a particular used EV that you might be looking at the dealership lot.
Okay. So what are those 3 things? Because I know of a couple. Well, I don't know that I know of a couple. I just know that I've owned cell phones for like the longest period of time, and the one thing I've learned over time is that a cell phone battery, the longer you own the cell phone, the quicker the battery loses its charge. No matter the fact that you've recharged it fully, it won't hold that charge as long as it did, say, the first time you charged it. And I'm assuming that happens to all of these types of batteries, whether it be for like my cell phone or whether it be for the battery that's powering the camera we're using right now, or the batteries in an electric vehicle. Is that so?
Well, you may be alluding to the number of charging cycles or the C rate that the battery can handle, but I can assure you, we know from the EVs that have been on the road for over a decade now, that luckily for the environment and for our pocketbooks, EV batteries last a lot longer than 2 years, because that's about how long my iPhone's battery tends to last.
Okay.
But yeah, you're getting close. So the number one reason you should stay very far away from a particular used EV is if the owner, the dealer, they can't tell you anything about battery degradation. So EVs are expected to lose about 10% of their original range after about 100,000 miles.
Okay.
That is considered healthy, okay? Now, that's not a problem if you've got, I've got 256 miles of range to start with on my Ioniq 5. Losing 10%, I'm not going to freak out about that. But in fact, there's the occasional bad apple, as I like to say, bad apple battery that can lose as much as 20 to 30% of its original rated range over those first 100,000 miles, which, by the way, beyond 100,000 miles, it levels out.
Yeah.
So typically your range is going to go through some degradation in the first like 50,000 miles, and then it levels out. There are Teslas on the road with 300,000 miles on them.
Okay.
Over 10 years on the original battery pack, and they're doing just fine with no more than 15% original range loss.
Okay.
But you need to find out before you even think about buying that used EV, what kind of battery degradation does it have? So, how do you do that?
Okay.
Any ideas, Ray?
That was the question I was going to ask you. Is there like, I know for all cars there's Carfax. Is there like battery facts? Is there a test?
There is.
Is there?
Yeah, it's mind-blowing. We actually had the CEO of Recurrent Auto on the show way back in the beginning a few months ago. Check that out if you want. And Recurrent Auto is becoming the Carfax of EV batteries. It's amazing. But in order to get the data that Recurrent Auto can keep track of for prospective car buyers, the owner of the vehicle has to have had their car hooked up to Recurrent Auto so that they could monitor the battery's health. So that's more of something that would be beneficial in the future. But if you're looking at maybe a 2012 Nissan Leaf that you might find for $6,000 or $7,000,
Okay.
that's about as cheap as it gets for an EV right now. It's only going to be capable to a certain extent of telling you about the battery's health. So let me just get to the point.
Okay.
Here's how you find out how much battery degradation has happened to a specific VIN number, specific car that you're looking at. First, look up what is the EPA rated range for that vehicle. Know what it should be.
Okay.
EPA certifies all these vehicles, finds out what the rated range is, and publishes that online for everyone to see, and the dealer or whoever you're buying the car from should be able to provide you with that info.
Okay.
Once you have the original EPA rated range, ask the seller to charge the car to 100%. That's all you got to do. And when it's charged to 100%, do this before you buy.
Yeah.
See what the estimated range is on the, what we like to call guessometer.
Yes.
The range estimator on the car. I find them to be surprisingly accurate. Now, once you have that car charged to 100%, compare the range figure that it's giving you to what the EPA says it should be originally. Do the basic math on your phone's calculator, and you should be able to figure out how bad was the battery degradation with this EV. If it's more than 15-20%, I'd stay away from that particular model.
Buying a car? Let the team at YAA help. Use the code FALL20 and save 20% on a YAA membership, or use FALL100 and save $100 on an extended warranty.
Is there a way to do a battery test that would tell you the health of the battery or how much expected life the battery might have remaining? Is there anything that you can do along those lines?
Well, that is the promise of what the awesome guys and gals over at Recurrent Auto are doing right now. But like I said, that's going to be most powerful moving forward.
Okay.
So as of right now, no. This is another reason why I am very hesitant to look into used electric vehicles that have an unknown history. I think your best bet is to actually meet the original owner, talk to the original owner, rather than buying it off a lot and who knows where it came from some auction. It's interesting because if you can speak to the owner, you can find out the answers to the two other things that were on my list. So let's dive into those.
Okay.
Where did they charge their vehicle most of the time? Did they mostly charge at home? Did they mostly charge at public DC fast chargers? Because we just talked all about battery degradation. Well, one of the things that can cause more battery degradation than usual is if it's been fast charged way too often.
Gotcha.
DC fast charging, think 150 kilowatts, sometimes up to 250 kilowatts. You're dealing with high amps, high voltage, and that creates a lot of heat. Heat is not the best thing in the world for batteries. So if I found an electric car that I liked for sale on the used EV market, and I spoke to the owner, the original owner, and they said, yeah, I didn't have access to a home charger, so I just went to the DC fast charger 3 times a week. Personally,
that's a bad
I would
sign.
not want to buy that.
Okay.
That's a bad sign.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. So these are things that you have to... Now, if someone does fast charging all the time, and I know, like, you could expect to get, I don't know, 10, 12 years out of your normal battery life.
They say usually 300,000 miles, yeah.
Well, is it miles or years?
Right now it's miles
Okay.
because we don't have any EVs on the road that are 20, 30 years old.
Okay.
So that's a running experiment.
So if you have somebody that every time it was charged, it was fast charged, does that mean one that might only be 3 years old might have more battery degradation than, say, one that might be 6 or 7 years old, but the owner charged it all the time at their house?
That is possible. In fact, I've met a few Tesla Model 3 owners who had that experience, and I started to talk to them about their ownership habits, and it really seemed like that was the case. I met a quite frustrated Model 3 owner in North Carolina who had been experiencing far beyond 10% battery degradation, somewhere in the range of 15 to 20% in his early 2018 Model 3. And he was kind of frustrated. And then when he told me how he basically relies on supercharging, that's likely
why.
to be a part of the equation. Can't prove it unless I was an electrical engineer digging down into the battery cells. But yeah, that is likely to be correlated for sure.
Interesting.
So yeah. Find out about its battery degradation. If you can't access that information by charging it to 100% and seeing what the full capacity of the range is, I would stay away. Find out, is it fast charged all the time? Because I would stay away from a used EV that was exclusively fast charged, or maybe even over half the time. I would stay away from that, but that's up to your discretion. Battery health is best when you are charging at level 1 or level 2 chargers, which means plugging in overnight, leaving it plugged in, right? Wake up in the morning with a full battery.
Let me ask you one silly question before you get to number 3. Let's assume that you're looking at one where the owners had it for 3 years and always supercharged it, always fast charged it. But you're looking at it as a used car that you just want to use it for local commutes or around town. And you are not as concerned about range.
I love it, Ray. I love it.
That because they have so much more battery degradation, you might actually be able to get a car like that for a few dollars less, and it fits perfectly with how you're intending to use it.
I love that you brought that up, Ray, because that's a great point, and that's the strength of the used EVs on the market right now, is that there may be unknowns, but they tend to be offered, especially when you're looking beyond Tesla, like Nissan Leaf, Chevy Bolt. They tend to be available for surprisingly affordable prices, at least before the car shortage that we've been going through, and hopefully if we work our way out of that. I mean, we were finding Nissan Leafs for sale for under $10,000 quite commonly. Okay. You are right. For certain use case scenarios, who cares if you lost 20% of the battery, right? If you're just scooting around town, maybe you're Uber, Lyft, or Uber Eats, then yeah, perhaps that's good enough, right? So good point. But you know what that brings to mind before we move on to number 3 of 3 is that if the vehicle is still within warranty, which we've got a great resource here at joinYAA.com, check that out, about the best EV warranties out there. If it's still within warranty, these warranties include a battery degradation limit. Typically, it's going to be 30% loss. So, for example, if the range of the vehicle falls below 70% of the original EPA rated range within the warranty, they have to replace your battery.
Wow. Okay.
So in the worst case scenarios, that has happened, and owners who've been so frustrated, I've known some, at least online, known them.
Sure, your close friends having you over for dinner. Yeah.
Their battery degradation was right at like 72, 74%, and they were so pissed because they needed to get down below 70% to get the free battery from the automaker before their warranty expired. So keep that in mind. If you want to know more about which automakers offer the best EV warranties, check out the resource. We'll have a link here.
What is the typical battery warranty?
Yeah, so the typical battery warranty is 8 years,
Okay.
100,000 miles.
Gotcha. Okay. So
Yeah.
in most cases, if your battery degradation is greater than 30% within that 8-year, 100,000 mile range, they'll replace the battery. If it's less than if it's less than 30% loss,
Then good luck.
it's all on you when the battery does finally fail and you need a new one.
Yeah, if it's outside of warranty.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
So,
cool.
yeah, I'm aware of this running experiment as I've purchased my own Ioniq 5. I'm thinking about how I want to keep this car for a long time.
Yeah.
And at some point in the next 5 years, I might start saving money, literally, in case I have to replace my battery, because you and we've seen lithium prices continue to skyrocket.
Yep.
And it might still cost $15,000 to replace an EV's battery in 10 years, should I need one replaced. So I do keep that in mind. But let's get on to number 3, shall we?
Okay.
All right. Number 3, drum roll, please. That was good.
Not really.
Recalls. Make sure the recalls have been taken care of. This is even more important in an EV than it is in an ICE vehicle because, as you probably know, you can't just scoot over to the corner, a mechanic, and get him to fix something that might be easily done on a combustion vehicle. With EV recalls, if it's relating to the powertrain, you're going to need to have the dealer take care of that so it's done safely, right?
Gotcha.
There are 2 popular used EV models that I want to point out and want to call them out here, okay? Chevy Bolt and Hyundai Kona Electric. Those 2 models, you got to make sure the recalls are taken care of before you buy that car, because at some point in time, both of those models have had very, very major fire-related battery recalls.
Gotcha.
And you don't want to be driving around in a rolling combustible vehicle.
A rolling fireplace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would not be good.
No. Well, thank you for educating me on these things.
Yeah, and if you guys have any other questions about buying a used EV or what you should keep an eye out for, especially because things are changing so quickly these days with so many new models coming to market and prices fluctuating so much, feel free to join us at the Electric Vehicle Forum over at the YAA Community. Join YAA.com. We have well over 300 posts on there already, and we're always on there talking EVs, whether you're a newbie wanting to learn more about the EV lifestyle or whether you're a nerd like myself. Check us out on the Electric Vehicle Forum. But thank you, Ray.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me, Justin.